Hey, this is Eli Campbell. You know, Steamboat is renowned worldwide for skiing, biking, and all that our natural playground has to offer. We're fortunate, though, that the natural beauty here attracts more than just outdoor enthusiasts. From local legends to world-class acts, amazing musicians regularly play the venues in our little corner of Northwest Colorado. Join me as I explore the stories and experiences of these talented artists who bring unforgettable performances to Steamboat. This is your Steamboat Soundcheck. Welcome to the Steamboat Soundcheck podcast presented by McCreight Progressive Dentistry. Eli Campbell here with you. And as we continue our series highlighting Schmiggity's musicians, I've got one coming your way Wednesday evening. Kris Lager Band. Kris Lager is with me. How are you doing?
I'm doing fantastic. I'm in the mountains on tour right now, and I actually had a day off, and I've been skiing since 8:30 in the morning. So I'm feeling I got that après ski glow. I'm feeling great.
We are all familiar with that here in Steamboat. Love to hear that you were able to get some time on the mountain. Are you going to be able to ski here in Steamboat when you're in town?
Unfortunately, no, because it's we're hightailing it straight there, and then we got to head back west to Montrose the day after Steamboat. So unfortunately, not this time, but
Yeah, and you live on the road pretty much full time, and I want to get into that. But before we talk about current day, I kind of want to talk a little bit about where you started, about kind of picking up a blues guitar at 13 years old after being influenced by 90s MTV, back when MTV actually played and focused on music, right? And I'm kind of relatively the same in that my first introduction to a lot of 90s alt rock music came from a Buzzbin CD I purchased like at a Target when I was 12 or 13 years old. And I can't remember exactly what it was. There's one song on the CD and I was like, I'm going to buy the whole thing. And it was my introduction to like Stone Temple Pilots and Radiohead and Blind Melon and all these other bands. Who were you drawn to when you started playing the guitar back then?
well, it's funny because like what I was drawn to once I started playing guitar is a lot different than what I was drawn to just through osmosis and through, popular culture and stuff. But I always really enjoyed a lot of my dad's record collection and stuff that he was into in the classic rock, and I listened to classic rock stations too, especially like when I started driving and stuff. But when I started playing music, I was obsessed with the blues. To me that was foreign. It was raw, it was jagged, because if growing up in the 90s and MTV, everything's pretty slick. Everything post disco is pretty tied to the metronome, and there's a formula to, if you want to hit record, it's got to be done a certain way. And so I was really drawn to the raw, jagged, sounds of music that wasn't necessarily particularly produced to be sold, which
Yeah.
was, it's an interesting concept if you step back and think about it. So I really dug deep into that, after my initial like guitar hero, things, Jimi Hendrix and Steve Ray Vaughan and Eric Clapton and BB King and Albert King and all the, usual guitar hero suspects that I was rifling through their catalogs and stuff. But then when I ran across like Muddy Waters and Jimmy Reed and, Howlin' Wolf and all those like, 50s post-war blues guys, it really tickled me, and I fell in love with that. And so that was kind of how I spent my first 5-6 years of playing guitar, was just immersing myself into the blues canon.
Yeah.
And trying to figure out how to play it. And then of course when I got to the point where I wanted to play out, there was a blues jam down in downtown Lincoln where I grew up, and Magic Slim lived in town. So if he wasn't on the road, he would be down there. And so like the first time I ever stepped foot on stage was literally with Magic Slim, a Chicago blues legend. So that was inspirational too. And so like I just kept finding myself running around with the blues crowd, just out the gate. And it was not a premeditated situation. It just what happened,
Yeah, I know that through your life too, you've used music kind of, it's been a deeply personal, therapeutic outlet for you. You view it as a tool of self-expression, being able to connect with others on an emotional level, which is what a lot of musicians and creative types say about the music that they are creating. How has that idea shaped the music that you're putting together, and how's that evolved since the time that you were 13 years old trying to figure out how to play the music of Muddy Waters to now?
um it's evolved every day, every single day. Obviously, I feel like when you have a strong roots foundation, like I was fortunate enough to get, um, the the base is strong. Um, so like I feel it's not like you know, it's basically like I feel like I'm moving forward essentially because through that I fell in love with country music and I fell in love with funk, especially New Orleans funk and Zydeco and soul. I love soul singers. Otis Redding was the first person that really made me want to sing a song. So I've always had that love for soul singers and R&B. So it just seems like in reggae, and as I go along my journey, I kind of just scoop up a little bit of that rhythm, a little bit of this melody, and so it's kind of like I'm constantly falling in love with something new. Like I want to get more into jazz. I enjoy jazz more than I ever have, especially like gypsy jazz. So I'd love to like start exploring gypsy jazz and other forms of jazz to incorporate on my playing and stuff. So it's a constant evolution. And then, so not only do you have the craft and the actual rhythms and melodies, but then you also rediscover why you're doing it, So it's such a beautiful, endless art form. And I feel like my performing and my vibe changed when I started to care more about the audience and what I was putting out and how my music is affecting the audience, and which before the audience even hears it, how it affects me. So I've kind of made a personal choice to try to play music that makes me happy and lifts my spirits, because yeah, music has is my uh like secret garden. A good friend of mine calls it, Matt Wallace calls it, his secret garden, and that's a great way to put it. Like it's my place of refuge that I can go to with my best friends, and we can just forget about things. And so it truly is medicinal, and as well as endless. It's beautiful, it's magic.
Yeah. And you talked about like finding the reasons for why you're playing and really holding on to that. And I think that you probably, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but for someone that travels as much as you do, playing 200 shows a year, you have to have a really strong personal connection and reason to continue to play and stay on the road. You look at there are a lot of other musicians that I hear lyrics talking about just life on the road, whether it's Passenger with the song where he says you only hate the road when you're missing home, or John Butler has the song called Home. More recently, I've been really enjoying a song by Mahali and Andy Frasco, who you're going to be playing with later this year. They've got the song Circus Life that's all about just kind of the craziness of being a traveling musician. How has that extensive touring kind of influenced your music and your personal life? And how do you kind of hold kind of true to just keeping that passion for what you do?
It's definitely affected me. I've always had a love-hate relationship with the road. I really have. I haven't done a couple hundred dates since my kids were born, so I'm I'm usually floating around like 125 dates a year, and that's a tough balance. If you were to ask my wife, she'd tell you I was gone too much. And if you were to ask my kids, they'd probably say the same thing. So
At
it's
least for
it's
now,
tough.
until they're teenagers, right?
Well, my oldest is 13 now,
Yeah.
and so it gets harder, but then in certain ways it gets easier because I've accepted that this is just who I am. This is what I do, and it's not easy. It's not easy, and it's not for the faint of heart. Because just like every day is a battle. Every day is a battle, whether you're battling the front desk at the hotel who messed up your bill. Like this, I'm just referencing what happened yesterday. And then you get to the gig and you're getting sweated by the parking people. And then, then the crowds might not always be what you want them. And then, so it's just, it's action. And I like that. And I think that's what keeps me on the road, is because it is full of action. But on the level that I do it, when I'm loading my equipment every night, I'm driving, you know, I'm doing a lot of the managing that comes with it. So it's, it's truly, um, it I should be committed, really, because it's like the music business is a tough business, and I don't want my kids to be musicians. I want them to be musicians in the sense like they know how to play music and they get into it, but I don't know if I'd wish this on them professionally.
Yeah, I mean,
You know?
it's one of those love-hate things that obviously you've found a way to keep moving forward with it. You have a mantra of celebrate life, and that carries into your music, your performances. How did that philosophy develop, and how do you incorporate it into your daily life, your family life, your artistry, and kind of holding it all together?
Um, it was just an accumulation. There was a couple pivotal moments along the way. One of them was when this guy told me that he used to listen to this song of mine when he manned his machine gun in Iraq, and it was this real like mean, nasty song, and it really messed me up a little bit because I don't like that.
Wasn't the
And
intention of the song?
yeah, the song is, yeah, it's low down and I think it's literally called Low Down. It's off my very first record, which isn't I it's hopefully not out there. I think someone did put it on YouTube, I think. But that really hit me hard. Like, I probably should think what affects what kind you know what emotional what it causes to the listener. And then there was another time on the road when someone said that they followed me, and I don't know why it just struck a nerve with me. Like they follow me, like I hope, and of course I was just kind of being a smartass, and I was like, well, I hope I don't lead you astray. And then just saying that kind of made me start thinking about, what it is that I'm doing and why. And, you know, so I kind of, and then there's the obvious, I just want to keep my spirits up, so, trying to redirect and refocus and try to be a conduit, cause I really do feel like, um, there's a higher power and a higher source, and music allows us to just kind of touch it every now and then if we're lucky,
Yeah.
so all those things combined with, having kids and just keeping, doing this for 25 years has gotten me to just really understand that, um I want to put out a positive vibe, which is funny because it's, being a blues, kind of blues lover, and that's kind of a different, you won't run across that, quite frankly, too much. You know what I mean? But at the same time, like a lot, like take BB King for example, like he put on about as positive a show as you'll ever witness back when he was still doing it, so. But it seems counterintuitive, but I feel like, I did kind of deviate at some point.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. I had the great opportunity to see BB King a couple times, and even while he's singing the blues, he's making you feel good. And so the music has that power to really elevate the soul and the spirit. And we're going to see that in Steamboat this week. I don't know if you're aware of this. This is a pretty big week for live music in Steamboat, with Winter Wondergrass kicking off essentially at the base of the ski area on Thursday. Your show at Schmiggity's on Wednesday. You can have an opportunity for some music lovers that are in town to lead things off for 5 straight days of great live music coming to town. What can music lovers expect from you at this Schmiggity show?
Shoot, I'll have to dust off my bluegrass tunes. I actually did dust off a few of my like really bluegrassy country stuff that I put out. And I've usually dropped one or two pretty straight ahead country songs on every record I've almost ever done. So all I got to do is go back and kind of cherry pick them out. So I'll definitely pull out some bluegrass now that I know that. But it'll be a feel good, high energy. I got a great bassist out of St. Louis on the road with me right now, Paul Brackens, who tours with Jackson Stokes, who tours a lot with Devin Allman and Allman Betts. And so he's got a great pedigree, great player, great jammer, phenomenal chops. And then Danny Berger DeRose is on drums, and he's another fantastic musician that tours with his band Secret Formula when he's not on the road with me. And so they're going to get, and actually Alex Olson is flying in that day. So I'll have keys that night as well. And Alex is another phenomenal musician that's toured with me for quite a few years now. So yeah, you'll get a 4-piece band to hopefully, making your backbone slip and putting a smile on your face and
Yeah.
forgetting about life for a while. That's the goal.
That's the best part about live music is forgetting about everything else that's going on in life. And I look forward to you helping us do that Wednesday night at Schmiggity's. It's going to be a great show. Want to remind our listeners that if you have the Steamboat Locals app, you can get a free well drink at the Schmiggity's bar that night. Kris Lager, thank you for taking some time. Safe travels on your way out to Northwest Colorado.
Nah, shoot. Thank you, man. I appreciate you.